Could AI replace governments in the future?
Which do you want to bite that one off first?
It's very provocative. Well, I mean, I think it kind of gets to the question is like, can AI replace kind of everything? I think governments is an interesting one because it's kind of like, can AI govern people? Or can people govern AI is also another interesting question.
Well, if I could, maybe I could break the question though into two parts, which is there's part of government which basically is like the decisions being made by high officials. But there's a separate part of government which is just administration and bureaucracy.
Yeah, well, I think so here's okay. So on that one, it's a little frustrating that AI has not replaced government on the bureaucracy side. So like, I'll just give you my favorite example, which is, recently, we had this big, ridiculous political debate about whether or not we should hire 80,000 new IRS agents. And the other way to solve that problem would be to basically hire 6 good, AI engineers and basically be able to get perfect auditing of everybody's tax result. And, maybe even tell people what they owed as opposed to making them guess and then arresting them if they guess wrong. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's no question that we could improve the bureaucracy with AI.
Yeah. Because it is weird, like the concept of government, the concept that the Secretary of State and the person, at the behind the counter at the DMV are the same.
Yes,
their both government is a little bit of a. Let's see, there will come a time when that will be viewed as a historical oddity.
Yeah.
And then look, like I would just make a more general observation, which is just like, look, if you can look at like measures of what you just might call sometimes like administrative bloat. Right, which is basically, well, I'll pick on universities, right? So the high-end universities, places like Stanford, Yale, and so forth, they now have more administrators than they have students, right? And so I don't know if Stanford, I forget the exact numbers, it's something like 12,000 students and like 13,000 administrators, right? And if you chart the growth rate of students and administrators, the student body has grown somewhat, and the administrator growth rate has just been off the charts. Like they never had this many in the past. Like this is unprecedented. And the same thing is true of like many.
And yet they've added zero capacity for students.
Exactly, right. And so the running joke is, of course, Stanford can now afford to, Stanford, if the staffing model could switch and just have a personal concierge for each student.
Yeah.
Right. That'd be the other way to organize the university. But and that's just I pick on them as a local example, but like that's true of many bureaucracies. Like, so for example, that's the story of a lot of the increase in the cost of healthcare over the last 20 years. A lot of it is just the same thing has happened in hospitals.
Right. It's not doctors and nurses, it's administrators.
It's administrators, exactly. And so, and you could look at that a couple different ways. You could look at that as just saying, look, I don't know, the world, the economy gets more mature and you just want things to run better, and you're going to have a lot more paperwork, and it's just going to be the way it is. And then the other way you can look at it is, well, no, the administrators are a class. You can apply like Marxist analysis. You can say that the administrators are a class in and of themselves. They have a class interest. The class interest is in the propagation of administrative jobs. Right. And so, they're like coat hangers in the closet. They reproduce in the middle of the night. And you're just they're like left unchecked. You're basically going to have the entire economy, the entire world someday. Everybody's just going to have administrative jobs. Or what are pejoratively sometimes called email jobs. Look, like email jobs are great for the people who have them. It's always less clear that they're great for the customers,
right?
Because of just this enormous cost bloat that kind of comes with it. And so, look, I know for sure, like a lot of, for-profit corporations are already looking at this, increasingly aggressively, which is like, okay, how much of this administrative bloat, how much, like even if we could use AI to just reverse administrative bloat back to 10 years ago, right, there would be the opportunity for like pretty big change in both staffing models, and then in you could literally, you could drop the cost of a lot of products and services. If you could take it back 20 or 30 or 40 years, even better. And if you could rethink the whole thing from scratch, and maybe you just don't even need all these people doing all these, administrative jobs because you have AI doing it, then all of a sudden, you can imagine a future in which a lot of products or services, the costs, become, a tenth of what they are today, because you're just taking out all this overhead. And so that's that for sure, I think, is one of the journeys that we're all going to be on, is to try to figure that out, because that is that is the kind of work. Like, can AI do a better job than the Secretary of State at like planning geopolitics? I don't know. There are people I'm sure who would say yes. I'm not gonna. Who knows? To your point, can AI run the IRS better? Yeah, almost certainly. And so why not at least give it a try?
And maybe getting rid of the bureaucratic state or replacing it or improving it would be the key to dealing with our other like colossal problem, which is the deficit issue, which we're going to have to address at some point, or not, or it'll address us. We'll see.
Yes.